Surprise! So I've not been active on YouTube for a while. If you're one of my 12 followers, you might have noticed that in my last video, which was 2 months ago, I was driving a blue JL. So in one of my wheeling trips this summer, my gears decided to eat themselves. I'm halfway through the re-gear. I decided last year, after I'd re-geared to 456, that I might want to do 35 someday and not just stay with 33s. So this time, since I had another opportunity to do it, I'm going with 488. So on the way home from Poughkeepsie Gulch, actually, my rear axle was just howling. And I took it in. The setup was all wrong. Only had about 2,000 miles on it. But it is what it is. So I got that done. I haven't actually done the front because on the same trip, since I was camping, inside my TJ. So I had a hammock hung from the front passenger corner to the rear driver corner of the roll cage. And it worked okay. I'm 6 feet tall. I had just enough room. But I thought, you know, it'd be really better if I had a little more. Not to mention, whenever we go on trips as a family, I like the extra length because instead of having to haul a hitch carrier attached to the trailer hitch with all of our stuff, I might actually be able to fit it inside. So I decided to get an LJ. I've had an LJ before. I had a black one in 2010, sold it around 2012. I was building a house, needed a truck, didn't have the money to own both, so I had to sell the LJ and get a truck. This time I'm not building a house and I already have a truck, so no problem. So I looked around for a couple of months. I found this red one right up in Evergreen, which is just about an hour away. So I went and bought it last Friday. I'm not gonna start over. That is one of the key things. I have so much money and time invested in the TJ that I didn't want to just sell all that stuff for pennies on the dollar and let it go and start it from scratch. So what I did is I bought the LJ, and I'm going to use this garage right here, and I'm kind of going to do a build from the inside out. I'm going to take my TJ and I'm going to swap the frame, tub, engine, transmission effectively. Really, it's going to look more like I'm going to take all my axles and suspension off the TJ, put them on the LJ, and I'm going to put the stuff on the LJ and put it on the TJ. And then at the end of it all, I will sell the TJ as a mostly stock rig. So I thought maybe it might be a good time to do kind of a walk around to show while I'm swapping over what all's going to stay on the Jeep and talk about kind of what my plan is for how I'm going to do all that. Okay, so this is my TJ. It's a 99 Sahara forest green pearl. It's got a 5-speed AX15 transmission. Originally came with 373 gears. It now has, as I mentioned earlier, 488s in the rear and 456s in the front. But the front gear is making some noise, so that's going to get swapped out 488 pretty soon here too. When I bought it, it had a 3-inch lift with a transfer case drop, pretty much all stock. It did have some old Terraflex control arms, the kind that didn't have a jam nut, so they would rotate back and forth to supposedly allow more misalignment. But what happened is the threads wore out and somebody had welded them solid, so I had non-adjustable fixed control arms. And I pretty quickly took those off and swapped them out. At the time, I got some rough country control arms. They've worked okay. The flex joints are kind of worn out, so I've actually got some Curry Johnny joints to put in them while I have it apart. So what I have is the 3-inch lift that came on it. I don't know who made those springs, but I've added, they gave a little over 3 inches of lift. I also added some spacers, about 3/4 of an inch, so it's got right at about 4 inches of lift. Those are Rancho RS 5000X shocks. They're painted silver. They're normally white, but I had read that they had a reputation for thin paint that would rust after a while. So I was going to put a coat on them anyway, and I had silver in the garage, so that's what I used. And they ended up kind of looking nice. I like the silver color better. To handle the extra droop from the shocks, these are like 27 inches long. I have YJ brake lines. You can see down here that's a Curry track bar. The front axle is a high pinion Dana 30 out of a Cherokee. And I actually, let's see if you can see that. see there's no front drive shaft, just to make sure I don't actually put it in four-wheel drive with the non-matching gears. I actually got a early Cherokee axle with a center disconnect, which is, I don't know, may not be obvious to see here, but basically it had a vacuum disconnect, and I eliminated that by using my TJ axle shafts and blocking up the back with a cover plate. In hindsight, it might have been easier if I'd have just looked around and for a little bit longer and maybe spent a little more money to find a non-disconnect axle. But this was almost free. By the time I bought it and I parted it out, the axle shafts, the calipers, the knuckles, and then I sold my old high pinion housing, I think I actually made a little bit of money. I've got a tie rod out of a V8 Jeep ZJ. It's a lot heavier duty. And I think they're Rough Country sway bar disconnects. Can't really see, well, you can kind of see that nice gold color zinc brake caliper is fairly new. I got that from Black Magic Brakes, along with my Black Magic brake pads and their brand new centric rotors as well. And earlier this summer I repaired the knuckles. They had the brake pad, the common brake pad divot issue, that the brake pads wear divots in the knuckles and then they hang up. So I welded those and filled it in and ground it back flat. Wheels and tires, I've got 32 by 11.5 R15 BFG KO2s on Ultra Series 51 wheels. They're 5 1/4 inch back spacing, standard TJ pattern, 15 by 8. The back spacing I like. It's not really enough to run 35s. It works on narrower tires. With 35s, the wheels would rub, or the tires would rub, but I like the look. I've got them plasti dipped. I think before I swap them to the red one, I'm gonna clean off the plasti dip and go back to the polished aluminum. I just think that goes better with red. Tailgate reinforcement kit from is it Moride? I actually have no idea how it's pronounced. It's one of those things I've read and never heard anybody talk about. Beefs up the rear end quite a bit of the tub. It actually ties into the roll cage inside, so it supports the weight of a spare. I think they say it'll support up to a 35, so I think that's as big as I'll ever go, but I am going to move that over. This is my Dana 44. It's got 488s and an E-locker. Stock axle shafts. I actually got it out of an 05 LJ in 2017 when my 35 was toast. So it's going back home in a way. What I'm going to try to do, the LJ has newer brakes. So one of the things I'm going to do is take off that brake distribution block and the lines on the calipers, and I'm going to leave those on this Jeep and use the ones that are already on the LJ and just swap the axle housing. Again, Rancho RS 5000X shocks, unidentified springs with a 3/4 inch spacer, a Tom Woods CB drive shaft. I have a JB Conversion super short slip yoke eliminator. At the time I wasn't thinking LJ, so I just wanted to make it as short as possibly could so I could make the drive shaft as long as I possibly could. These things with their short drive shafts are sure sensitive to any variation in driveline angle just because it's so short. So wanted to just cover my bases. Blue Monkey Speedo Healer to correct the speedometer. So I've got a JKS rear track bar with the properly bent bracket to allow for the angle of the slip yoke eliminator. That is Savvy, a double adjustable aluminum upper control arm. So I have those in all four corners for the uppers. Those will also get switched over. Track bars, control arms. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it, but I think the transfer case for the 6-speed and the LJ takes a short input gear on the transfer case, and my transfer case has long input gear. So instead of swapping the whole transfer case as I had planned, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and take it apart and rebuild it with the slip yoke eliminator, which that kind of sucks. So on the body I have MCE fenders. They are plastic. They flex a little bit. They have a lifetime warranty as far as I know. I've never had to replace one, but I love the flat fender look. Just the openness that it gives under the wheel arch to kind of see what's going on under there. It's also easy to spray out at the car wash. I did have to cut the fenders to put those on, which you can see underneath here, kind of where the line is, right along here. So those are gonna stay on the TJ, because I'm not gonna go to the trouble of swapping new fenders on. That would be a massive pain. As part of the MCE fender conversion, I did use JK turn signals that I drilled here in the grill, kind of somewhat matching the location on the CJ. And then I used these 3/4 inch LED side markers to replace the ones that I cut off in the fender. The 3/4 inch LEDs, you gotta watch it. I bought them directly from MCE. That's the way to go, because the ones that you'll find on Amazon and eBay most of the time, they just don't work. These are a 3-wire, they work for a side marker and a turn signal. The first set I bought would work for one or the other, but didn't work for both. So it would work as a turn signal during the day, but if I turned the headlights on and the side marker came on, then they didn't flash, so I had no turn signals at night. Obviously that's not gonna cut it. A to Z fabrication sliders here with some tube steps. They obviously wouldn't even work on an LJ anyway because they're too short, but also they drill into the tub, and I'm not gonna go to the trouble of filling in a bunch of holes in the tub down there to take those off. These are just some like $40 cubes. I bought them to use as fog lights, but they're not really the right pattern, so I'm gonna leave those. As you can see, I've already swapped the bumper over. This is the bumper that came on the LJ. My bumper here is a worn rock crawler stubby. These are Hella halogen driving lights, which I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with them. I'd kind of like to have a true fog light pattern there, because it does get foggy sometimes here. After my last wheeling trip, I swapped out to these. They look like truck lights. They're actually knockoffs. They're like $100 on Amazon, but they have a good pattern. I like them more than the ones that I had before, which were JW Speaker knockoffs. I think either one performed okay. The JW Speaker knockoffs had kind of a weird pattern where the hot spot in the light was a really noticeable, distinct rectangle, and it always kind of bugged me. I had every intention of moving these over to the LJ, but the LJ I bought has them already, so I don't have to swap them over. It's a little less work to do, I guess. I've already swapped my KC Slim Light 6-inch spotlights. Haven't wired them up, as you can see. The harness takes a little more time. So that pretty much sums up what's going on. Swapping the TJ for the LJ. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say when I was starting to switch parts over, like the bumper and the winch, that I wasn't a little sentimental about the TJ. Especially with my oldest son. We've had summers and winters even where we were just wheeling every weekend, just me and him. There's a lot of memories in it, and so it's going to be kind of sad to see it go. But in the end, I think it's definitely an upgrade with the extra space, just a newer vehicle, and it's a little bit cleaner. As I mentioned, in the undercarriage and the interior and all that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Looking forward to documenting some of the work that I do as I swap stuff over. Now that I've got those jack stands, I can actually maybe get to work. So stay tuned. Click all the like, subscribe, share stuff that I'm supposed to say at the end of these videos. I'll see you later.